Thank you for joining us on the Going Deeper podcast, a ministry of Fathom Church in Littleton, Colorado. You will never get to the bottom of the depths that are in Christ for you. And our hope with this podcast is that it will help you go deeper with God. So let's dive into this episode of the Going Deeper podcast. What's up, church? This is your host, Kyle Knight, and welcome to the Going Deeper podcast, a podcast where we have these conversations to hopefully help you in going deeper in your relationship with God. I'm in the podcast lounge with our lounge studio, whatever, with our own missions and events minister, Karina Bost.
Hey.
Hi, Karina. And lead pastor, Chris Martin.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, Chris Martin.
Hey, guys, here's the question. I want to know how type A you are. And here's how I want to measure this. When you get notifications on your phone or emails in your inbox, are you I'm going to leave that little red bubble up there, or I'm going to immediately erase that little, like I can't have a billion little red bubbles all over my screen. And also with emails, are you an inbox that is 2,000 emails deep and you don't ever delete or archive? Or are you I'm going to do everything I can to have that little beautiful Gmail message that says your inbox is empty? I want to know about this.
My wife better not be listening to this one.
I have red circles on my phone.
What?
I confess.
Red circles.
I don't know if this is a measure of type. Well, maybe it is.
It is.
Way to put us all in a box, Chris.
My biggest thing is I have a terrible memory.
Okay.
And if I read that email or read that text and it needs a response, there is a 0% chance, zero, that I will respond to it later if it's marked as red.
Do you?
Fair.
So can you?
Totally
I don't
fair.
even know if you can do this because I've never done it. Can you take a text message, read it, and then like mark it as unread?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a way to do
No,
that?
that just happened. It was like an Apple update.
Was it? I'm going to do it.
year.
I'm going to try it right now. That's really interesting. Okay, let me see.
It's very valid, though. That's fair. Totally fair.
So that it's more, for me, it's more because I value responding, and it won't happen if I don't leave it as unread. So no,
Yeah.
I don't love all the red circles on my
Mark
phone.
as unread. Oh my heavens! I just figured it out.
Isn't that amazing?
That's
helpful.
That's actually super helpful. I still hate
Yeah.
the red dots, but that's really helpful.
Yeah. But also, I think I would love my work email. I can get to where it says your inbox is empty, but Gmail, I mean, I would be undoing years and years. It was way too long of email threads to get an empty inbox. So I wasn't even going to try unless I created a new account and then I could.
Okay.
But yeah, on my work email, I have folders and I move all my emails into folders. My inbox is empty.
Okay.
For sure.
All right, Kyle.
I've got
Confession.
no red dots.
Did you just clear them all?
No, for real. I've got no red. So yeah. So notification wise, I can't stand when they're like, I always have to check it. I always have to read it. My inbox it has emails in it, but I'm one that like, I will most likely check and read the emails right away. If I need to like save it, or I'm not super picky about having a totally empty inbox, but I at least have to have none that are like unread.
Yeah.
So there are some that I'll read and I'll like either mark as important or mark as unread if I need it later. But yeah, I'm for the most part, like it bugs me when there's a little notification, which there's technology control stuff over me, which is annoying. But yeah.
Okay.
My wife though, on the other hand, has like
Dude, you should matter.
thousands of emails in her.
I have red dots
See, I mean,
all over. I have red dots all
I
over
can't
my.
handle
It
that.
doesn't like stress me out. Like looking at my wife's phone stresses me out,
Yeah.
but that's not too bad.
We'll deal with this in your next annual review, Karina. But yeah.
That's fine.
Is there a right or wrong?
There's a right. There's a right way to
What
do
is
it.
yours?
And,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. I clear all notifications. Although I think a notification is a purposeful thing, and so I have notifications turned off of almost every app except for ones that are important.
True. Me too.
So I don't need like games updating me. Not that I have games on my phone, but like I don't need updates on Apple TV and things like that. So that's silly. That's just silly. But yeah, I I clear it out. I do have some emails in my inbox, but they're only ones that are pertinent. And then as soon as they're not pertinent, I archive or delete.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't need like 600, Bed Bath and Beyond emails like loading up in my inbox. Not that I get those either. So
Right. Sure.
I unsubscribe from a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I have to keep that fresh.
Hey, but you're valued here if you have a lot of red dots. Just saying.
It is not a mark of status.
It's not.
Thank you.
No.
I think.
No. All right, let's get into what
Let's
we're talking
get
about.
into it.
This episode, as you can see, we're gonna be talking about schooling. Just from, even just recent things. Like I feel like education and schooling and what's being taught in school, like all that kind of stuff is in the news all the time. But we're parents here, and we just thought like we'd talk about schooling, talk about public schooling versus private schooling versus homeschooling, like just all that good stuff about education and schooling. So I thought like we'd maybe start out and we could each do this and maybe talking a little bit about your own kind of upbringing, your own experience. What were you like? Were you a public school kid? Were you a homeschool kid, private school, whatever like that? And yeah, maybe just you, your family, what that has kind of looked like for you. So who wants to go at this one first?
Yeah. Mostly public school. 1 year, I think it was my junior year of high school, I think it was like shared schooling. I homeschooled the first half of the day and then did public school the second half. And then my senior year, I did dual enrollment. So I was actually at college taking high school. Well, you got dual credit. I was taking college credits to apply towards my high school. So I kind of had a spectrum.
Yeah. You're like a genius.
Ooh.
Wow. Very cool. I wasn't raised in the church, so it was public school. And so public school K through 12th grade. And then I graduated high school and went to private Christian college, which was my first exposure to, it was shocking. It was, genuinely, it was shocking to walk into my first class, my first day at CCU and have the professor say, let's open up in prayer. And I'm like, wait a second, can we do this? Like, is that okay? Right. So it was a shift in my brain.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Yeah. I grew up in public schools, public school my whole life. And then, college was a really big university.
Do you want to share what university?
Just only CU Boulder. Go Buffs. They were winning the championship this year. No. And then Denver Seminary after that. So yeah, I'm a public school kid. We have kids.
Yep.
What are all the kids in?
Well, before we get into this is where I think I almost want, this is like, I want to rename the podcast like, are you ready to rumble? It's like fight night. Like this is where Christian specifically moms, but I think it expands beyond that. But like you want to see a Christian mama cage match. You get a public school mama and you get a private school mama and you get a homeschool mama and you put them in the octagon and you see who comes out and emerges. And obviously the homeschool mom is going to go out first. She's going down first, just dead in the arena. All right. And I can only say that because we've been doing that. All right. The public school mom is shifty. All right. Like she's might be carrying something, and then the private school mama has the money and the ability to hire somebody else to fight for her. So I'm just saying like, that's what that's in my mind as we're talking about this. Right. Okay. Although we won't probably, I do have a pocket knife on my person right now.
Great.
So yeah. That's what's going on in my mind when we start talking about this kind of stuff. It's a contentious thing amongst Christians. So yeah, let's now to your question, like what are our experiences for our children when it's come to schooling?
Everyone's looking at me. All right. So once my kids have had the spectrum as well. They all started off in a charter school, which a charter school is a public school with a little bit more freedom.
Yeah.
They were not, so it was a Montessori elementary school. Then they all went to, they've all been to public middle schools. One of my kids was homeschooled for half a year and then public high school. One of them's not in high school yet, but
yeah.
So kind of the spread a little bit,
mix,
but a mix.
Yeah, I mean, I have way younger kids, so I could kind of say we have a little bit of a mix too. I feel like it's a little interesting with my wife being a teacher, but our boy is in first grade. He's at a charter school, so he's at a public school now. He kindergarten the year before, he was at the public school down the street from us. But yeah, my wife's a teacher and she runs an in-home kind of daycare preschool thing, so she taught our kids up until or my one kid up until he went to school, and teaches our girl there. She doesn't just babysit kids. She loves to teach. And so she's got some other kids that she teaches there too. So, I mean, we're public school kids pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and we, Harper, both Marcy and I are products of public school. And my opinion through college was that we were going to do public school for Harper. And that was based around a conviction that we needed Christian witness in the public schools. That was where I felt passionate, like arguing kind of passionate about that. And then we had our little girl, and whatever it was, things changed. Now, also my wife was an educator working at a Christian school. And so for preschool, we enrolled Harper in this Christian school. When COVID hit and everything went online, we decided to pull her in homeschool. So for kindergarten, first and second grade, we have homeschooled Harper. And there's also been like a homeschool enrichment through the public schools that we've been a part of as well. But next year we're moving her to full-time private Christian school. And it's actually closer to our house than even the public elementary school is. So it is kind of like our neighborhood school, but that's our hope is to have Harper go to that Christian school. And so we're private school people. Never thought I would be, but we are. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah. Okay. So you hear this a lot since you kind of brought up, like, it is kind of like it's a fight between parents on where you're sending your kids nowadays, especially Christians. So how do you deal with kind of the thought, the worldview of like, hey, if we are maybe especially in 2023, if you're a Christian, is there one or the other place that our kids should be more, I guess, should they be homeschooled? Should they be going to a Christian private school? Should they be in the public school? There's like a lot of pros and cons about all of this. So what are your first initial thoughts on this? Like, just this huge debate on where to send your kids in 2023.
Let's do this. Let's do it like this. Each one of us has to make a case. We'll do it like debate team. Okay.
Okay.
We have to make a case. I would like for you to make the case for private school. Okay. So Karina's going to make the case for private school. Kyle, you're going to make the case for public education. And I already kind of gave a little bit of that. So you can just use that. That's fine. And I will make, since we've really done homeschool the last 3 years, I will make the case for homeschool. How does that feel? I feel like that'll be fun.
Sure.
Sounds like a blast.
Even if we don't, you're going to try to make the case, even if you disagree with it, you're going to try to make the pro case for your position. So let me start. I'll start with homeschool. Okay. This is the case for homeschool. As Christian parents, we have been charged with raising our children. You think about Old Testament passages like, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. You think about even the Shema in the Torah, when they rise, when they go to sleep, when you're eating, when you're walking, when you're, just talking about discipling the scriptures, all this stuff kind of happening. Well, as Christian parents, we have limited time with these children. In our culture, we have 18 years, and that's kind of it. Not entirely, but that's kind of it to really exercise our parental authority and discipleship in our kids' lives. And so why would we send our children for sometimes 7 or 8 hours a day to another place when, if we are financially able, we could one or both stay home and not only educate in terms of curriculum, there's so many resources now, there's so many helps now for homeschool curriculum so you can actually educate your child with, writing, reading, arithmetic, those sorts of things, but also at the same time walk with them, developing their character, developing their spirits, developing their hearts, sharing the gospel with them, walking with them more intently. So I would say that the argument for homeschool is this is the best use of those 18 years, and you will never regret the time that you spend with your children. There's my argument for homeschool.
All right, here's the argument for private school. With the world progressing, what the world believes is drastically shifting from what we as Christians believe. And at a private Christian school that you get to pick, you get to put your kids in an environment in a school that aligns with what you believe theologically. And that you don't have to worry about the false information being fed to your kids that they don't always share with you. So you can't, anyone knows, you ask your kids how the day was and you go, oh, it's great. What did you do? I don't know.
I don't remember.
Right, exactly. But they are hearing those things and it is filling their brain. And so you don't always get the chance to counter or discuss it. So at a private school, I would assume you would vet it out. You know what they believe, you know what they're teaching. And then also with that, you have staff who are Christians. And with that, I think comes a level of love and care for your kids on a spiritual level and a mentorship level that is unique to a private school. So that would be the case, I think, that you have a little bit more control of the information that your children are learning in the environment they're in.
Yep. Good. Love it.
The case for public schools.
Sinners.
I would say for one, it's it's available and open to those who can't don't have the means to whether it's go to a private school, pay for that, or even homeschooling.
Right.
It's kind of that like easier option, that open option that like everybody can go to a public school, which is, I mean, we're super blessed in a country that we can do that.
That's right.
Then I would say, I mean, yeah, Chris, you touched on this a little bit and I don't like to always use this as like the top one or anything like that, but there's the whole for a Christian family, for a Christian kid and parents. To me, it's like there's the loving your neighbor. There's the going, like sending your kids who hopefully, are believers in Christ, who have the gospel with them into a public school that could be really far from that. But they could have those opportunities of being a light, being salt and light to their peers, their teachers, like really all of that. And yeah, I think that's kind of my big ones. Like a social piece to it too. I mean, that could be, having your kids meet different people, meet different kinds of families, friends, all that kind of stuff, and having those interactions and having that kind of that social piece to kind of build them up. And yeah.
So I think you're let me add a couple to, and you guys can add a couple to mine if you want, to the public school one. Diversity. Huge deal. Okay. Access to more and varied programs, including after school activities. You tend to have a higher caliber of just offerings that are secondary offerings in a larger public school sort of thing. When it comes to private schools, in as much as you do get that theological piece and that teaching piece, you also get the added benefit of a peer group that you still need to worry about, you still need to be involved in. But if you want your kid to have Christian friends, there's probably a higher likelihood, maybe not always, but a higher likelihood that they would find good Christian friends at a Christian school. So those would be some things that I would add into those. Would you guys add anything to the homeschool piece? I pretty much said time with kid, influence it with kid. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's also now go back around, and from our same positions, let's talk about some of the shortfalls that come with each group. So we'll do homeschool, private school, public school. What are some cons? What are some shortfalls? What are some, This is hard. I'll start.
Okay.
With homeschooling, there's all these nice little caricatures of homeschool kids being socially awkward, of homeschool kids being, sometimes even behind, not only socially, but even sometimes educationally. Now, that's not 100% true, because some homeschooled kids excel at a much faster rate because there's not all the other stuff that they're dealing with. But there's sometimes this, are you really getting as good of an education? Are you missing out on social aspects? Are you missing out on other, like sports and dances? And maybe you don't like to dance and don't want them to dance. I get that. But there is that socialization stuff. The other argument against homeschool is that it can be sheltering in some ways. It can perpetuate some of the over control, over parenting, helicopter parenting sort of mentality, though I think an argument could be made for all school types for that. But there are certainly some downfalls to the homeschooling thing, not to mention it requires one person in your home to stay home to do the homeschool, which requires a financial means of really a single income. That's another downfall. And any of your own educational, spiritual, or social biases are exactly what your kid is going to reproduce. So there is no variance in terms of that. Your kid will model and mimic your strengths, but also some of your flaws, and without sort of a well-rounded educational experience. So I think those are all things that we could say, yeah, those could be potential or actual pitfalls of homeschooling.
With private Christian schools, one of the big ones obviously is the price point. It
ain't cheap.
It ain't cheap. And there are levels. There are really, really expensive private Christian schools and less, but most of the time it's still a substantial amount of money. Yep. And even if you qualify for some sort of scholarship, it's usually going to be a strain on your budget.
Yep.
Could be a strain on your budget. So that's one. Another one is the illusion that you're sending them to a Christian school and therefore everything's Christian. Yeah. And like you kind of alluded to, like all their friends will be Christian, but that's not the reality. There are kids that go there that aren't Christian, but there are also kids that say they're Christian and aren't really, it's just an environment that isn't as certain as you would think. And so I think that leads parents to think, oh, the school will do more parenting for me. Not always, but sometimes, right. Or they feel like they're reinforcing things at school that they are being taught at home, which isn't always true. Or that they're safe from, oh, my kid won't party because they're at a Christian school. Oh, they don't cuss because they're at a Christian school. There is still very worldly problems at Christian schools. And then another one would be that I had a third one and I lost it.
It's okay.
Maybe I'll remember it.
We'll go to Kyle, and then if we need to come back, we can.
Yeah, I think one of the huge ones that can kind of be split up into different ways is for kind of a negative on public schools is influence of first of what they're being taught.
Yep.
Don't really have control over that as a parent.
Not at all.
Not at all. And I know I was watching a video from I think it was Jen Wilkin talking about this. And she was mentioning how like her kids go to public school too, but like they know the curriculum being taught. It's a small kind of thing. So like understandable, but for the most part, it's, public schools are going to teach what public schools are going to teach. And so influence wise of what your kid might be learning what is right and wrong, learning what is acceptable. All those kind of things is scary. Yep. For sure. And then there's like just the influence of even just like other kids and other families and even just teachers personally and that kind of stuff of like, man, you never know what you're like, who's going to be your kid's friend and like who they're going to bring over someday to play and just sort of other people's influence on your own kids. And so that's a huge one, I think. And I guess I'm going to throw it out there that I hadn't really thought of until now that might be a might be a negative to public schools, but also maybe just I think maybe schools in general, besides homeschooling, is safety for me. I'm always, man, in the world we live in now, I am always thinking of, is my kid safe at school?
Yeah.
And whether that's from like school shootings, that kind of stuff, or just in general, again, of what he's being taught, of what's going on in the classroom, that kind of stuff. I don't see that. I don't really have control over that. And so, man, dropping Austin off at school every day, just praying like crazy that I hope he's safe. Like, God, keep him safe. Those are, to me, those are the big ones that I always kind of think about. But I feel like there are a lot of things nowadays that are like kind of big question marks with public schools for sure.
Yeah. So this is helpful. And it's good that we all just kind of take one, because the reality is there's pros and cons on all sides. There's not when we come back, Kyle, to your question of like, what should Christians do? I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. And I think a lot depends on the kid.
Yeah.
And a lot depends on the parents. And a lot depends on the familial and financial system and allowability and conviction. And I mean, there's lots of things to think about. Here's what I would say, and I'd love to hear you guys' thought on this as we kind of wrap this one up. But I don't know if it matters, public, private, charter, homeschool. I don't know if it matters which one you choose. I would argue that your child will only be as successful as you are actively engaged in a relationship with them concerning their education.
Yes.
That's yeah, it matters if they get a good teacher or not. That matters. Yeah, it matters if they have good friends or not. That matters. Yeah, it matters if they are successful or not, if they have accolades or not, if they have extracurriculars or not. Those things do matter. But I think what matters more is a parent's engagement relationally with their child surrounding their education. And some of that means mining a little bit, digging a little bit with them for more than the minivan ride home sort of, how was school? I don't know. Like it might.
Why does it have to be a minivan, dude?
Because you have one. Yeah.
Okay.
But
It's
like
all too
it
real,
might,
man.
it might be digging a little deeper. It might be going and being intentionally involved in volunteering in the classroom or at the school. It's taking a vested interest in a relationship with the teacher. It's understanding the things that are being taught and being able to dialogue with your student about those things, especially on things that might be a contentious point for a belief that you have, whether it's human sexuality or history or religion or philosophy. I mean, things that your kid might be learning in a certain context, even in a Christian context, may not be what you want them to know. And to be able to have those dialogues and be invested is the key, I think, to a successful Christian parenting educational strategy, as opposed to the idea that you drop them off and it's the school's job to teach them, or it's the Christian school's job to teach them and disciple them, or it's the charter school's job to teach them and develop their character. No, the school is there to partner with you as you are the educator, the character developer, and the spiritual guide for your children. That's how I would say it don't matter. Take your pick, but you better be involved. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I think being in a constant state of, this is the approach we took of evaluating our children, and they are all very different. Their learning styles are very different. And that's why we've kind of had to spread the seasons of life. What they were doing were different. And that's why we've had some different seasons of what they were doing, but also, just the opportunities in life. Like, well, one example is our oldest. I thought I would homeschool all my kids, and I did preschool with her, and I learned very quickly she values like the right to teach. She was constantly questioning, like, where's your science degree where's your math degree where you can tell me 2 + 2 is 4? And I learned real quickly, like, my relationship with my daughter is going to suffer if this is, this was preschool.
Right.
And so I could just feel that pushback. at that very young age
Wow.
that I'm like, oh, this is not going to be healthy for us as a family if this is what this looks like. And so we were just constantly evaluating at every step of the way. And it wasn't like with our youngest, it wasn't like, oh, this is where he's at. This is the best choice. We're going to just drop it. We were constantly evaluating, like, is this the best fit for him right now in this season? Like, how can we help him be more successful? Which is kind of like you said, it's you're the one who is responsible for the education piece, the spiritual advice, all of those things, those rest on you. So to just be really intentional about that, to not just drop him off to school and then wipe your hands clean, but also, live within your means. Just because you really, really want your kid to go to a private school doesn't mean it's wise to live outside of your means to make that happen.
That's right.
If it becomes a financial burden and your home life is suffering, your kids are going to feel that, and it influences how they do at school also. So it's being really intentional. The grass isn't always greener.
No.
Where other side you can make where God put you in, what situation you're in, the best education for your kids.
Yep.
With intentionality.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. Definitely. Yeah. Being intentional, being involved, Chris. Yeah. That, I think for me, that's huge. Before I had kids, I would have probably said like, oh, like I'll probably have kids, send them to public school, and like it'll be good. And like, that's it. Like, you just go get your education. That's fine. Now having kids, that be involved part is just, it's so huge for us. It helps that my wife is a teacher and that she's already so involved and like best friends with my kid's teacher, which is just crazy. But I mean, they talk all the time. They have great communication, about like what Austin's learning, what he's struggling with, what he's good with, all that kind of stuff. But being involved as a parent on my part, I would have been like, yeah, of course I'm going to be involved with my kids. That's a given. I want to be a good dad. But the fact that when the school my kid goes to now, that this charter school is, you have a certain amount of volunteer hours as a parent. And man, when I heard that first, I like cringed at it, because I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I really don't. Like, wife, you can do all that, right? But the few times I get to be in there, like, I value that so much more now, of just being present with him. In a public school, like having his teacher know me, having his students kind of know, like, I'm Austin's dad. Like, the involvement piece for me is it's just so huge on just community. And my kid's in first grade. I already get I don't know what I learned or whatever, but like, just, I'm already learning. Like, I'm not gonna take that as an answer. And you can get to how his day was, what he learned, and all that stuff. Who his friends are, and everything like that. And one thing I'll say is, I do think, and this kind of goes back to how I was before kids, not really thinking too much about this. Like, we have to give thought wherever you fall on this. You've got to give thought onto where and how you're going to like educate your kids. Like, that's so important to like have these conversations, and really just wherever you choose, have it, like Karina said, have it be wise for you. But like, you got to have these conversations. You can't just be like, well, it's their education. Like, I'll like supplement some of that when I get home and stuff like that, even though that's a huge part. But yeah, that be involved part is massive. Yeah.
I think intentionality is the key word in this. So guys, I think we've covered it.
Yeah.
I think we've solved it. Send your kid to school.
Send your kids.
Or keep them home.
Educate your kid.
There should be some
Get
education.
your kids educated.
Done.
Yeah. Thank you guys for this conversation. Thanks, church, for listening, and we'll see you next time.